And now, actually, to round out this amazing group, we're going to hear from a CEO who actually I don't think has anything to do with freight and logistics.
Not yet.
Okay, but he's got an extraordinary, exceptional, career in media, and now, finds himself in a wonderful, wonderful situation with ownership of a brand that we all know, the iconic Adweek, and is beginning the process of going through his own transformation. Will?
Yeah. Thanks, Carrie. And sorry you're going to have to look at my back for 20 minutes. But thank you both, because I learned a lot, and I'll apply a lot of that to what I'll tell you all today. Extraordinary stories. We're at a slightly different juncture in our transformation. We're nearer the beginning than the middle or the end, quite frankly. Let's see, can we advance to the next slide? You got it? Okay, great. Okay, anyway, well, while we figure this out, so am I going backward or am I? Okay. Oh, sorry. Wow. Oh, because I can't see it over here, but there we go. Very good. Okay. So sorry. So I apologize in advance because I have an editor's weakness for alliteration. So the way I think about this conversation today was flux being the new flex, right? Because I think there's a tremendous amount of flux happening, not just in our business, but also in the world that we inhabit, marketing and advertising. I'll talk a little bit more about that shortly. And I think what's really fascinating about these stories is that there's a lot of commonality, but there's many, many, many paths to get there, right? And I want to thank Carrie and Heather and all of you, because I think this is a really interesting room for me to be in, and I've already been very grateful to meet many of you, and will continue to do so. So I like to start these conversations by answering the question, why should you believe anything I say? And the answer is that I'm the only person who will have worked at TMZ and NPR in the same lifetime. That was the very first newsroom at TMZ, tiny little newsroom in Glendale when we were 16 people. And that, of course, is our great franchise, Tiny Desk. Now, I don't say that because I'm particularly proud of the fact that I've done both of those things, although I will tell you that Nina Totenberg and Harvey Levin have a lot more in common than you might think. But it's because it's a way of saying I've seen a lot, right? And so I've had the real privilege to be across a lot of different businesses, but all of them at a time of transformation and flux. So, at TMZ, for instance, when we started in 2005, you'll remember that it took 25 seconds to load a 15-second ad, which then played in front of a 12-second clip of Paris Hilton getting out of a car at Hyde nightclub, right? And so, we were just on the nascent edge of digital video. When I got to People, we were 4th in the entertainment news category in ComScore, if you can believe that. And over the course of 4 years, also with the leadership of Rich Batista, who was our CEO at the time, we really transformed People into a business that's now a top 7 U.S. news site, as well as into television, into streaming, into so many different places that people just hadn't been, either monetized or leveraged as a brand. And then at NPR, I had the opportunity to, for the very first time, create something called the NPR Network, which allowed stations, our 250 member stations, and NPR to collectively fundraise together, right, and collect donations directly from the audience, which set records for fundraising last year, and it's very much an organization in need of that support. So I've had the opportunity to do all this, and this has led me to Adweek, which is a brand that I've been reading since I was 11 years old. I was a strange child. But I it is a brand that has been with me since those days and all the way through my professional career as, you know, a resource, not just on the advertising, not just on the agency and the marketer side, but really on the whole breadth of the span of my professional career. So it's been really, really great to get there. And I'll talk a little bit, we'll get to the Adweek part of it. But I think there's an important part of this that's around the moment that Adweek has to meet, right? And I will just say this very plainly, that the marketing advertising industry is at a pretty critical moment of transformation and disruption. I'm sure many of you know this already, and you're seeing it. But because it's a very data-driven group, I wanted to give you a few data points to illustrate my point. So global ad spend, as you probably know, last year passed $1 trillion, right? It's, you know, and that's a 10.7 CAGR. But in the US, specifically, jobs in advertising and related services only increased by 400, like 400 people. And that suggests that agencies, marketers are going to have to produce much bigger results with fewer people, right? And this is coming to life in the merger between Interpublic Group and Omnicom, right? Or the acquisition, rather. That's a very big deal, right? We've been talking about, you know, big holding company consolidation for a really long time now, but this is pretty seismic in our industry. And they talked about the fact that they're going to take $750 million out of both companies in terms of cost savings. I think that's actually underestimating the effect it will have on the entirety of the advertising market because and the ecosystem, because once you start to see the agencies downsize, combine within that combination, you're going to see the same thing happen across a lot of other holding companies because they'll say, well, Omnicom and IPG are doing it, we're going to do it too. So I think that vastly underestimates the impact that it's going to have on the industry as a whole, including the humans. But obviously, the thing that is going to affect a lot of the humans is AI. And, you know, when we talk about it constantly, obviously at Adweek, and there's one data point which I use a lot. So the chief marketing officer of a very large technology company, which will remain nameless, told me that he did an experiment. This was sometime last year. He had a commercial AI creative product optimize a piece of visual creative, and he put 8 people on a team to do the same thing. So the 8 people on the team worked for 5 days, and the AI worked for about 12 hours. And the AI-generated piece of visual creative was 26 more times more effective, resonating with the audience than the humans. 26 times, not 26%, like 26 times. Now, that was an experiment, obviously, and you know, things have evolved very quickly, you know, since then. And I think, you know, the lesson here is not that AI is going to, you know, overtake the humans. The lesson is that there is so much more for AI to do for the creatives in this industry, and they just have to figure out how to use it. But it's very telling. And he said that, you know, when he did this in a way to wake up his in-house creatives, to say like, look, you got to use these tools and you got to get better. So that is a pretty startling outcome. Now, one of the other interesting things is how marketers are reacting to all of this. So we did a survey, and 46% of marketers believe AI will eliminate more jobs than it creates. That's not a particularly spicy take. 8% of marketers believe AI will create more jobs than it eliminates, so not that many. 45% of marketers disapprove of levels of AI and creative. Get used to it because it's happening already. But my favorite data point was that 8% of those same marketers believe that AI will take their job. So they don't feel like there's any threat to them, but it's gonna permeate the industry. It's gonna like affect everybody else, right? So that tells you a little bit about the psychology of the marketer, right? And that's a lot of what Adweek does, is sort of gauge sentiment of the marketer, the psychology of the marketer. And I heard someone talk yesterday on a podcast about how the great thing about B2B media is that we really think about how to serve business titles, right? And so we think very, very, very incisively about who are we trying to reach with this particular piece of content. Is it a CMO? Is it an agency president? So on and so forth. So anyway, the marketer psychology is very important for us to gauge. Separately, we also there's also the marketers being under threat, under more pressure than ever, right? And as many of you have probably heard, the average tenure of a top 100 advertiser CMO is 37 months, right? That's like just over 3 years. So if you think about that, the challenge here is that you get the job, you got a year to put your team together, sort of convey your vision, then you have another year to sort of put that into action, and then one more year to see if it works, and if it doesn't work, in many cases, you're gone, right? And we've seen this over the time that I've been CEO at Adweek, like a lot. And what that causes, it's not just the fact that people are in and out of jobs. It's not just that the companies themselves, and many of them gigantic Fortune 500 companies, have this crazy disruption in the way that they market their brands. It affects the entire industry, advertising, agencies, ad tech, martech, the whole ecosystem. So it has a lot of ripple effects just beyond tenure. 43% of CFOs disagree that their CMO can quantify ROAS. And this one is particularly important, 93% decline in search engines and optimization titles, which means that there's something happening in the way that marketers actually drive acquisition, and it is shifting so quickly, right? So that happened in the course of 3 years. So we go to the next one. And then we also just published a study from Gartner, which said that only 22% of CEOs and CFOs believe that the CMO in their organization has defined the importance of the marketing function adequately. That's a problem. And then 61% of them said that the CMO is not at all involved in strategy. Really bad for the marketer. Okay, so that's where Adweek comes in, right? And I like to say that one of our function is to sort of unmess the mess, to be sort of a lighthouse for where the industry is and where it is going, and also be a force for change and positive change. This is the first issue of Adweek. It was published in November of 1979. That means that we're a 45-year-old brand, right? And Craig was talking about brands that are much older than ours, but it means that there's a legacy of the brand being a really important part of the industry. Now, what's great about that is that we have real sort of meaning to the industry. But to do what we need to do to transform this business is really about being a 45-year-old startup with a great head start, right? And that's the promise, I think, of what we can become. We've had a tremendous amount of transformation, obviously, over the last 45 years, even in the last 5 years. If you go to the next one, what's interesting about what we do now is that I want to show you there you go. So we still publish a magazine, right? 12 to 14 times a year, and it's a really important part of what we do. And we have Megan Thee Stallion on the cover. Great. We have over 2 million followers on social. We've got 2.5 million known users across our digital properties. And our events attract great people, from celebrities to CMOs to CEOs. And it's a very important part of what we do from a brand standpoint, from a community standpoint, engagement, all of it, right? But you all know this better than I do. So this is sort of where we're at today, and I'm really proud of the work that we've done to transform the brand visually, transform the brand in a lot of different ways. And I think now is the time where we have to sort of, I call it like sort of the win now, because, when you're owned by private equity as we are, and when you have a window and a vision, it's really time to win. So I think of our continuum in 3 ways. And again, here's the alliteration. Investment grade journalism, that's the core of what we do, right? We break stories, we own stories. We're first and we're fast, right? That's incredibly important. Inspiration, and that comes in a lot of different ways. In many respects through our events and what we do to convene and give people peer-to-peer access that they would not otherwise get elsewhere. And then intelligence, and that's the hardest part of it, right? So yes, we have a lot of data. We have 45 years of data, but to pull all of that together and to create the platform that we think we can is immense amount of work, as many of you know. But we're working on that. This is the latest cover of Adweek, which I love. So how do we win, right? 2 things, and I repeat this to the team really until they're completely bored to sobs. But it's about 2 things, right? It's about elevating the product and it's about executing relentlessly, right? And if we do those 2 things in 2025 and into 2026, that takes us on the path to really getting this business and this brand to where we need it to be. So let me give you some examples of elevating the product. And I'll go through these very quickly. Winning the Super Bowl, right? So year over year, in fact, year over 2 years, in a time when it's really hard to drive traffic to digital properties, we were up across all metrics: visitors, page views, time on site. We were 66% up on LinkedIn engagement, 87% up on click-through from LinkedIn. So we're driving traffic. That's a really big win for us because of how difficult it is really to drive those audiences. We've completely changed how we show up at big industry events, whether it's CES, Cannes. We have a new event template called Adweek House. Hope you all will come and join us at future Adweek Houses. We're about to do one at South by Southwest, matter of fact. We've created a new format called the group chat, which is an executive roundtable where instead of 3 or 4 people on a panel, we have 7, 8, sometimes 10 people all discussing kind of longer in-depth discussion about useful topics. We're reimagining our tentpole events, Social Media Week, Brand Week, and Cannes. We have started creating bespoke events for sponsors like Snap, Gear 7, Cirque du Soleil. We're launching a membership community called Vanguard, starting later this spring, which we believe will bring together chief marketing officers and their next leaders in a really, really intentional, but also like highly intellectual, academic way, right, for them to learn and not just go do ayahuasca on a mountaintop somewhere, which is a lot of what happens in the CMO community sometimes. We're unveiling a completely new digital experience, right? So completely new website, and we've revamped the newsletters, and we're going to continue to do that. Launching a new weekly podcast next month, and we hope to be first to market in our space to build a proper AI agent to help provide more value once you're on every article page or the homepage of Adweek, so that you can dive deep into the topics that you're really interested in and into the pieces of information that you're interested in. So there's more to come there. And this, we are going to do before the midpoint of this year, right? There's a lot going on, but that's a velocity at which we have to work to elevate the product. When it comes to executing relentlessly, the core tenets here are the things that we've been talking about, and I'm sure we'll talk about this afternoon, which is really about the sort of the infrastructure. So I'll use winning the Super Bowl again because that was really a victory for the team, because we set incredibly ambitious and aggressive goals, but we also made them very. We really changed how the newsroom works on a big event. We created what we call the Super Bowl 6. the 6 days between Thursday and Tuesday, right? And we marked that territory and we said, we're going to win the 6 days of the Super Bowl, right? And we did. So we're going to completely overhaul our web hosting taxonomy, email subscription, talk to some of you about that, data staffing, analytics, BI. We've introduced new video ad technology. We have to truly build data governance and security. We see it so much more often than we used to, that our 45 years of data, our names, our databases are very much, at risk. And so we have to really build that. And we've created a completely new sales management technology and structure. And again, these are all things that are happening in the first half of this year. And you might ask, well, so then what comes in the second half? Well, I'll come back and tell you about that some other time. Let's get this one right. Because that's the pace that we're on, and that's what we have to do. So my time is up, but I'll just end with this sort of more spiritual note, which is, this is me and Deepak Chopra on the stage of Brand Week this past September in Phoenix. Now, nothing will make you feel more vulnerable and alone than sitting on a stage in front of 400 people with your eyes closed, breathing deeply. And sometimes I, as a CEO, feel very vulnerable because there's so much coming your way. And there's a lot that you can control, but there's a lot that you can't. And I think, how I like to think about it is, Deepak on stage said, manifest what you want and then come what may. And that's the way I look at every day in this role and in this industry, because, you can manifest what you want, but you also have to be ready to absorb whatever comes your way. Thanks for your time.